Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. Today is Thursday, February the 21st, 2019. It's 4 p.m. in New York, 1 p.m. in Los Angeles. It's 9 p.m. in London, and Sydney, Australia is at 8 a.m. But wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in for yet another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. The only unhappy thing today is that my co-host Steve Rowell is a little under the weather with the same flu, I presume, that I just got over or I'm in the process of getting over. So we're going to send out a lot of positive energy and well wishes to Steve while he remembers. We were just chatting actually on Facebook a little bit earlier today, and I mentioned to him that it took me 36 hours of being sick before I finally remembered, oh, yeah, I'm a deliberate creator. I can get my health back. Oh, geez. What made me think of that? Well, he apparently beat me by about, 17 hours. He figured it out in 19 hours, so he's working on it right now. But he sent us a wonderful gift. He sent his life coach to fill in for him today, and that's who you hear laughing in the background. That's Dan Mangena, who is, I've only gotten to know him now for about 10 minutes. I'm liking him already, but let me give you a little history about him. He's a transformational life coach and a public speaker and an author. He's the creator of the Beyond Intention paradigm, which we're going to be asking about, and an ambassador for the Mangena Foundation. He's passionate about calling people to take deliberate action in pursuit of a joyful life of purpose. We like that. He carries a message to dream with your eyes open. I like that phrase. Around the globe as a regular contributor on Medium.com and also as host of the Do It With Dan podcast series, available on most major podcast platforms. And his mission statement and further information on how to connect with him across social media can be found at www.dreamwithdan.com and with using the social media handle @DreamerCEO. So with that introduction, Dan, thanks for sitting in for Steve today. I mean, first of all, it's great to meet you, and second, thanks for just sitting in. We appreciate it.
Well, it's my absolute pleasure. Like we discussed a few moments ago, Steve was like, Dad, I'm not feeling terribly well. I don't feel like I'll be able to give my best today. Can you fill in? And I've been kind of hoping that he was going to... I don't know if I called it in. I don't know if his illness is my creation so that I can step in.
Oh, you're going to take credit for it? Is that what it is? Oh.
I might take credit for it. I might take credit for it. But...
Well, fortunately, we know that's only humor because ultimately we can only create for ourselves, but we can certainly send energy to somebody else. So now I'm going to ask you, what kind of energy were you setting? No, I'm not sure I want to know.
You can really bake your noodle with this one.
You really could, yeah. This is like one of those things that, oh my God, my head is exploding. I don't know if I can handle this. But seriously, it's great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about some of these things that you, first of all, some of those terms that were given to me by Steve about things that you're doing and the concepts you're promoting and projects and so forth. They're fascinating. I like the way you put those wordings together. But tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, I think Beyond Intention is probably the best place to start because that's what everything really surrounds itself on. Mm-hmm. Beyond Intention is a 4-step model that I came up with about 11 years ago. And what Beyond Intention essentially does is it creates a framework for us to take control of something that I call the choice machine. My philosophy simply is this. If we actually take a moment to consider the reality of who we are right now, mm-hmm. we're just running on the basis of our consideration of the memories that we have, memories of experiences that we've had. Oh, yeah. Even if you think about your favorite food, right. by the time you've actually consumed enough of it to consider whether it's your favorite food or not, all of it's happened in the past.
Right. Yes.
So everything is a reflection on the past. Yeah. And nothing starts from nowhere. There's always a point in time where everything starts. And mm-hmm. every single one of those points in time that leads to the outcomes, the paths that we go on, all began somewhere. And at that point, we had the choice to take one path or another. And whether that choice was made consciously or subconsciously, everything that we are is a result of what we look back on as experiences. Mm-hmm. And every single one of those experiences goes back to a point in time where consciously or subconsciously, we chose to go one way or another. Right. Mm-hmm. Beyond Intention puts us in control of that choice machine so that we can deliberately choose and therefore create our lives.
And that makes total sense. And I mean, when you explain it that way, it's like, okay, the podcast is done. Thank you for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. You just pretty much solved the whole problem right there. But that's it. You're right. That's exactly what happens. We're creatures of the past trying to live in the present, and that can be confusing at times. It creates problems. It creates a wonderful therapy industry. It creates a life coaching industry. I mean, there's all kinds of things. But it also causes challenges for people and problems. And I don't know that the terminology is always consistent from one person to the next. Here on LOA today, we just talk about in terms of resistance. We tend to take the Abraham terms more than anything else.
I talk about resistance as well.
Yeah, you do the same thing. So, okay.
Yeah.
And resistance is, I mean, they just all crop up. Almost all of them are tied directly to something in the past. And usually we don't know what they are. Usually it's like it's a mystery. Sometimes we know. Sometimes it's pretty obvious. But I'm amazed how often something pops up in my own experience, and I say to myself, well, what is that? Where the hell did that come from? Because I don't know. I can't make an immediate connection. I think that happens to a lot of people. But
it does.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine you run into that a lot as a life coach because you're constantly helping people overcome resistances, right?
Well, I mean, so when you think about it, I mean, one of the things I love is that whether you're listening to Abraham, whether you're listening to, I don't know, whether you're reading the Book of Seth or I Am Word, or you're listening to any of the great minds, going back to Buddha, anyone that's in any form of life creation alchemy on any level, everybody's really pretty much saying the same thing. They're just saying it slightly different wording, really because truth is finding a way to express itself to reach someone else. It even goes back to my philosophy on religion, which is something I call the purple brick theory. If you strip away man's deliberate manipulation of truth, regional differences, language differences, and take everything back to its root, there's very little difference between everybody.
It's true.
But everybody it's almost as if that thing that we call God has expressed itself throughout the ages to different people at different times in different ways so that we can all have the opportunity to connect with it in a different way. But the truth just is, now science is talking about the quantum field and quantum mechanics and energy, which is exactly the same principles as spirit if you match them up against each other. Then you can go to the Native Americans and they'll talk about the Great Spirit. You'll go to Dreamtime stories at the Aboriginals and they're talking about an exact replica of the story of Adam and Eve. Then you can go to the I think it's the Enuma Elish, where they talk about Adama and Nakash, which is exactly the same as the serpent in the garden. Everybody's telling the same stories, but everybody's telling it from a different angle.
It's true.
And the truth of how creation happens doesn't change from one person to the other. It was really funny, and even in terms of battling the ego with myself, looking at some people, they're like, "Oh, hang on, that's what I say. That's my." No, it's not mine. It's just truth. It's just truth, right? And
wait a minute, you mean none of this is original? Come on, that's not fair.
We just find different ways, different languages that speak to different people. I happen to speak to people that can. I mean, I think I specialise really in just simplifying things and putting it in a way that's quite systemized so people can look at it and consume it. But it's no different to what I don't know any of my teachers would do or any of the ancients would talk about. It's exactly the same thing. As above, so below. We are what we are creates what we experience. The only thing that stands in the way is the resistance to our thoughts showing up, whether it's in our energy field, how we feel, whether it's in our mindset, what we believe, or in our actions and what we fail to do. That resistance is the only thing stopping every single thought we have show up in our lives.
It really pisses me off, too, I have to honestly tell you. It does. I gotta be honest. It's like, oh, come on. You mean I tripped myself again? It's my way of maintaining the positive attitude in the midst of absolute negativity just to make a joke out of it.
But the noodle baker there again is that even the negative experience that we're making the positive action in is still a result of our own creation. So it all comes back down to that.
It really does.
When you really step into to true self-autonomy, which is where I'm really feeling into where my work's going, something I call alchemic life creation. It's really just seizing complete responsibility and control for your life and putting all of the time and energy into actually just shifting who you are, because once you do that, then everything automatically shifts around you. And then you can run an autopilot just working on you and watching everything else change.
It's cool. I can see why Steve picked you as a life coach. I mean, you got it down. It's like, dang, I got it. I'm ready. Next challenge. Let's go. So actually, we have our first challenge. I mean, before we even logged on, I was having a conversation through Facebook Messenger with one of our regular live stream listeners. I'm not sure if she's listening to the live stream today. She probably will be. But her name's Amanda, and she was sharing an experience that she's been having with her husband, looking for a little assistance on it. So we did a little back and forth. And I'll read it to you. It's actually a little bit lengthy. We had quite an exchange today. But that way you'll get a sense of what we talked about and what my answers were to her. And then I'll be very interested to hear what you have to say, what your answer would be. Cool. So, bear with me. This is a little lengthy. She says, first of all, good afternoon. I have a question. The scenario goes like this. I enjoy working out. I'm a member of one gym, but also like to go to another gym for more one-on-one workouts, more intense. I tried to explain to my hubby about this place and how much I love it. He says he's not interested in hearing about it. I get it because my husband used to work out and no longer does, and therefore he's gotten a little fluffy. That's the technical term, fluffy. So he is probably having issues about how he feels, so on and so on and so on. However, he is always going on about how expensive it is to have this membership and then go to another place as well. He's always about the lack of or how expensive things are. I know the laws of attraction and how they work, so how do I work around this? I'm positive about money through law of attraction, but he really makes it a challenge for me to stay in my high vibration. I've tried to explain to him and share with him about LOA, but he is so close to it that it's a real struggle. How would you or others in the group suggest I work through this? Then LOL, real life struggles, LOL. So my first response was, well, Amanda, hi. I'll bring your question up on today's podcast. My shorter answer is that I wonder if there is something more direct that you're really asking about, trying to get him to go to a gym he doesn't know. Sounds like you're trying to solve a problem for him, for yourself, or for both, but what that problem is isn't clear to me. Negativity doesn't come from not going to the gym. I mean, going to the gym can overcome negativity or help to do that, but it's not the root cause. And also, it's great that you like the new gym, but why does that translate to him liking it? I get the distinct impression that there's a mixture of unresolved issues going on here. So she wrote back saying, sorry, I rambled. It's not about going to the gym. I'm good with that. The big question was about money. I'm good with the law of attraction about money. He, however, is always worried about money and commenting on how expensive this is and that is. But there are things that make me happy and feel amazing, i.e. the gym and gym memberships. We're not poor by any means, and we're middle class, but he's so wound up about money. It's hard to stay positive when he speaks negatively about money, which then brings me down, and I have to release that and do my own LOA thoughts. It's frustrating at times. And that aside, I've been practicing LOA for the last couple months and feel absolutely amazing, and small things happen every day that amaze me. Great, I said. So resistance, I said, is anything that is tied to fear. This is especially true where money is concerned. Joel Elston, who does the Thursday morning podcast with me, made an interesting comment during this morning's podcast. He observed that overwhelmingly as a life coach, women come to him about relationship issues, but men come to him about money issues. I also said, I've experienced what he is experiencing. I've been in his place. When he says it's too expensive, what he's really saying is that he doesn't see the value that you see, the value that makes it worthwhile to spend the money on whatever. There's probably a lot going on beneath the surface that I can't see, but I remember something my wife did with me. She sat me down at one point and asked me, are you aware of how consistently negative your comments are? And I denied it, of course. She was smart enough not to try to argue with me. My wife is a former psychotherapist. So she has a little background in this. She's smart enough not to argue with me about it. Instead, she just asked me to think about it, which I did. And I slowly had to come to the conclusion that, much to my surprise, she was right. Now, this was in mid-2007, and in November of that year, I saw The Secret for the first time. So Amanda responded to that saying, well, I've tried that, but he thinks my positivity is a little out there. I prove/share with him little things that have happened using law of attraction. He's like, yeah, well, it's just a little coincidence. LOL. So she says, you can see what my struggles are. I read and watched The Secret when it came out too, and all the Hicks books, but then life grabbed me and I fell off the LOA bandwagon until just before Christmas this year, as I had a lot of negative things occur in my work life, which then fell into my home life, which in the end landed me with 2 major ankle sprains, 2 weeks apart. It was a clean sign to stop the negativity, slow down, get back on track to who I really am. So I wrote back saying, well, you can't prove anything to him. Only he can do that when he's ready to do so. Louise, my wife, understood that. That's why she just left me with it. She didn't try to prove it. She didn't try to convince me. She just asked me that one simple question and left it at that. And then she demonstrated her trust and confidence in me by not pushing it further. The best thing you can do for him is to let him know that what you see and then respect his decision as to whether or not he acts on it. If he hasn't acted yet, it just means he isn't hurting enough yet. He hasn't decided yet that he's had enough of his current track. So that's how far we got with our conversation. And obviously, we didn't cover everything that she brought up, but that gives you a lot of room to talk. So what do you think? What would you say to Amanda?
I'd cut to the chase on it, really. And this is the short to the nub, which I'll then expand on, but the short to the nub point of it is that we cannot experience anything that we're not. everything that shows up for us can only be a shadow, mirror, or reflection of something that's happening inside of us. So somewhere within her, externalizing her husband is all very well and good, but the fact of the matter is it's just a reflection of something that's happening inside of her, is showing up through the medium of this that she's witnessing in her husband.
Good point. Yeah.
And so when she's witnessing the resistance coming up through her husband, it's most likely that's just the line of least resistance for the mind's attempt to hold her in the same place, showing up in her world in a way that allows her to still tell herself, but I'm doing the work, I'm doing this, but if it wasn't for my husband. So it enables us to keep ourselves, and we all have these gremlins that show up for us, right? It enables the mind to keep the illusion of change while actually really keeping a homeostasis. Some people have swings. I normally have to battle swings. That's what it is with me. I don't really, because I've spent so much time working on this with myself, over a decade doing on this, 15, 16 years in general, but over a decade through the model of Beyond Intention that I use, it's very difficult for the gremlins to get me. So they have to get even more clever. And so what happens is that it's normally really something quite deep and intricate. The whole thing of, that other person, I can't get away with that anymore because the mind doesn't lie to itself and it's not being my enemy. It's just doing its job of keeping things the same. So that's why in my work, I talk a lot about microshifting. I think Steve's mentioned about microshifting a couple of times on the show.
Yes.
But microshifting, what we do is we take consistent, conscious baby steps in the direction of a chosen outcome. And what that does is it actually ninja slips around the mind so that by the time it realizes that you've made a change, it's actually settled into the new way of doing things and you don't get the same resistance. So in this instance, what's happened is she probably made these massive leaps, discovered this wonderful information, started making massive leaps. The alarm bells have gone in the mind and it said, whoa, this looks like we're about to make a change. Time to put my cape on and go to work. Right. Where is the easiest place for us to keep her in a loop so things stay the same? Husband.
Very nice. I like this.
Then the choices are made in speaking to her husband in the first place. I don't know how long she's been married, but women are intuitive creatures. Men are too, but women are, especially when it comes to the man in their life.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
She knows what on some level, I'm not saying consciously, on some level, she knows what's going to switch his buttons. She knows what's going to make him negative because we all have that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just whether or not we listen to it, right? And so then it gets expressed in, blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, rah, 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 rah. And then she's like, oh, God, there's the negativity. Oh, my husband. But because of externalization,
I love it. Because
of the externalization, we slip past the trap of being able to say, I'm doing the work. I'm feeling great. I'm doing all this, but my husband. And that externalization creates the space
Very good.
for that resistance to consistently show up. But the second that you actually bring it back in and say, okay, this is either showing up as a shadow, i.e. a darkness that I'm avoiding, or a darkness that I fear, or a darkness within me that I failed to recognize, a reflection, a direct mirror of what's happening within me that I'm seeing in somebody else and refusing to acknowledge, or a mirror, the opposite of me, that I'm giving attention and energy and therefore allowing to show up for me.
Very good, yes.
But coherent frequencies consume incoherent frequencies. And so instead of trying to convince her husband, instead of trying to even convince herself, all she really needs to do is, we'd say in Beyond Intention, number one, accept. Step one's accept. Accept that I've created this crap up till now. Cool. But now's a new moment. We can do something different. I can only create change if I do something myself and I take responsibility and change me. That's step one. Step two, come back to the only point in time that really exists, which is the present moment, the now. Right. It's called clearing. Whatever we've got to do that. Some people use, Abraham talks about breaking the momentum by going to sleep or having a nap. I love that one. I like to dance, put some good music on, or I'll meditate, or I'll do some chanting, or do some yoga in order to just ground me, bring me back to the moment so that I can make a new choice.
Right.
And in that choice, I ask myself, okay, how do I want to feel? Do I want to feel this negativity and resistance? No. Because an intention really is just how we want to feel expressed as words that we connect together in order to call in a specific outcome. So I set an intention in that space, in the present moment. I say, okay, how do I want to feel? I want to feel happy. I want a loving, harmonious relationship with my husband. And then step three, gratitude. We connect to that feeling by being grateful for it in advance. We connect to that feeling. And then step four, we sit and wait for the clues about where we are in the journey. Are we still veering towards that choice that we don't want? Okay, we go back to the beginning and realign ourselves. Are we getting closer? Then we celebrate every microshift that we make getting closer. And then when we do arrive, we celebrate our arrival and anchor in that new baseline for our creation from where we are from here on in. So I just ask her to say to herself, first of all, Is she ready to accept that her husband is not doing anything other than expressing what she's calling in as a vibration frequency? That's number one. And number two, is this the frequency that she wants? If no, how does she want to feel? And feed into that. And if yes, then stop complaining.
So this is why I have so many life coaches as my co-hosts, because, boy, they're so much better at this than I am. Really. I learned so. I like to joke, Dan. I am the best coached person in America because I have all of these co-hosts in the UK and in America who are giving me all this great coaching just vicariously, just by having these conversations. And you're just proving it one more time. I mean, I'm realizing just how much I was helping her dance around her little thing that you cut right to it. That was great. I love that.
But I'm very direct, and this is why. I mean, I only coach 5 people at a time personally. I've got a great team. Steve's training to be one of my coaches at the moment. Yeah. But not everybody can work with me because I just don't give you any quarter for the narratives.
But that's good. That's really, I like that.
Not everybody's, and it's crazy because the funny thing is that in the last 3 weeks, 2 people have paid, and it's a lot of money to coach with me, paid a lot of money to coach with me. Mm-hmm. And before the first sessions even started, realised they're not ready for it and said, I changed my mind.
This is too much.
I changed my mind. And they pulled out before we even had our first session. And I make no quibbles about it. I mean, I did this really controversial video called Stop Lying to Yourself. Even more controversial, it seems, than why I love Donald Trump video. But the Stop Lying to Yourself video.
Well, that alone would probably do it no matter who you're talking to. I don't care which side of the fence they're on.
And it wasn't even about Donald Trump. It was about where we place our energy and attention.
I'm sure.
And actually, if we hate something, we're just making it stronger.
Absolutely. Really that's one of my favorite topics, actually. I love that topic. Yeah.
I'll fire you over the link to that one anyway.
Okay. Yeah. I'd love to. Yeah.
But the controversial video, I was literally saying that some people just aren't ready, and it's okay if you're not ready. Mm-hmm. But own that you're not ready, and own that actually you're happy, whether you don't want to be happy or not. The mind, should we say, is happy with where you are. Because the mind doesn't lose in terms of the outcomes that we experience, and your environment doesn't lie about what the mind is saying. So if you're not happy with your environment, you're winning at something because the mind's getting what it wanted. You created something, maybe unconsciously, but you've done it.
Absolutely.
But owning that actually puts you in a position where you can start to make new choices about what you want to show up for yourself, just like we said to your caller. Mm-hmm. Do you want to be here?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing, too, how many people and how many different ways that people will try to avoid that direct question. You know, what exactly do you want here? Mm-hmm. You know, in fact, people are really good at explaining what they don't want. I'm sure you've seen that. I mean, they can give you paragraphs on it. It's one of my actually one of my favorite things to ask them after reading like long dissertations on all things that are wrong with X. I say, well, okay, I get it. Now, what's right? And you get a polite answer.
They've not got so much to say about what's right.
Not so much, no.
With talk about what's right.
Kind of just derails
this
it,
is right, but
yeah, right.
The old but.
But yeah, that's absolutely right. I love that. That's very, very good. Oh my goodness. Well, no wonder Steve likes to coach with you, Dan, because I mean, you just cut right to the pith. You just get down to you actually remind me of my Monday morning co-host. He's not actually a life coach per se, although he does help people and sometimes professionally, sometimes not professionally. He's more like what would I call him? His name is Louis de Souza. He's kind of like a missionary for LOA is what he is.
Nice. I like that.
That's really what he is. And his mission in life is to help everyone, not just for LOA, but for Abraham Hicks LOA. So his mission is to help turn everybody on to Abraham Hicks that he can possibly do. And it's actually his career. He has built a career doing this. Yeah, really something.
Brilliant.
But he does the same kind of thing. He'll take whatever question you bring up, whoever you are, he'll narrow it down to, what would be the Abraham answer on this? What's actually going on with you on a vibrational level? And he'll talk about, you're vibrating on this, you're vibrating on this. This is why you're getting your A is leading to B. He'll do that kind of thing.
I mean, 1 + 1 = 2, and will always equal 2.
Yeah.
The fact is that some of us are forgetting about the 1 and the 1, and putting a 2 into the equation and wondering why we're getting a 3. We're making 1 + 2, saying, but I did 1 + 1. No, because you haven't checked into what your vibrational frequency is, or you haven't checked into what your mindset is, or you haven't taken any bloody action. Yeah. They're sitting there looking at a check on the wall, not doing anything to bring themselves into alignment with it, not doing anything to change their beliefs around it, not doing anything to reduce the resistance to it, staying the same person, the same frequency, the same state of being, and wondering why they're still getting the same results.
Yeah, that's true.
The environment does not lie.
And it's because, I think it happens most often because when we're not in that great alignment, we kind of trap ourselves mentally into a space where we really forget even the basics of stuff we've learned. So even if we've been learning Abraham or Seth or Neville Goddard or, even the more Napoleon Hill or Wallace Wattles or any of these other guys, or the women too, we may have learned it, and then we get into the bad space and we can't remember any of it. And all we know is right now we're hurting. That's all we know.
And this is where my work really comes, really has been shining over the last decade. It's just giving a framework, a very simple 4-step framework. So in those times when you do get stuck, you can just ask yourself, okay, number one, do I accept here and now that I've made this? Do I accept this moment as it is, as perfection, and recognize that although this is where I have been up to now, I have the power to make a change to where I go next. Do I accept this, yes or no? And if I don't, I need to get into acceptance of that, because I'm not going to be able to take control back of this horse and carriage unless I own that I'm the only one holding the reins.
Very true.
And once I've done that, am I ready to do what's necessary to come back to the present moment? And coming back to the present moment may not be a 5-minute jog. It may be 6 months of speaking to the right kind of therapist or doing the right deep work. I did a lot of deep work over the summer. I did resonance repatterning, and I've continued to do so. I did aqueous therapy. I was seeing a channel. I was doing deep meditation work. I'm talking so many different modalities in order to dig down deep and gut out all of the crap that was keeping me out of the moment.
Wow.
Allow me then to step into the space now where coming back to the present moment for me, it doesn't become any less challenging. However, there's a lot less resistance to me coming back to the present moment. And I'm a lot more practiced in saying, okay, let's cut the stories, Daniel, and come back to the present moment.
I mean, what you're describing is a lot like the old joke about the kid who's shoveling out the horse crap out of the barn. And he's shoveling and shoveling and shoveling and shoveling, and an adult comes by and says, it's a great job you're doing. I mean, I've never seen anybody muck out a barn like that. He says, well, I figure with all this muck in here, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere.
Oh, God. So often we spend so much time looking at the muck that we just end up just with more and more muck. Because where attention goes, it goes. And, people go to all this time. I mean, I was saying this to I was having a coaching call with someone, can't remember when it was, earlier in the week, and she was trying to understand about this problem, And I just said to her, okay, but is thinking about the problem bringing you any closer to being a state of being that is the solution?
Yeah.
No, it's just keeping you vibrating at the same level as the problem. And that's one of the gremlins that comes in. I've got to work it out. I have to understand what I call the perpetual planning loop. Perpetually planning to get out of the muck.
By the way, I have a degree in that one, by the way.
I think I've got masters today. But yeah, if you just ask yourself, how do I want to feel? Connect with what that is as a vibrational frequency, step into that, then you're a lot further along. Now, of course, we still have to deal with the mindset. We still have to identify, is there inspired action for me to take? And take that action. But unless you're ready to deal with the frequency, which is the first point of call, I mean, a lot of people dig in with the action. I've done this and I've done that, I've done that, this and I've done that. When you look at visible light, that spectrum that we're calling physical reality is like that against this.
Right.
So many other vibrational frequencies have been gone through before we get to physical matter. It's literally the last thing. I called it's conversely the biggest thing and the least important thing. It's the biggest thing because it's the part that people sometimes don't do. They just put the check on the wall. They just meditate and don't do any action. But at the same time, it's the least important thing because it's the last thing that you should be checking off the list.
It's a good point.
But you do have to check it off the list.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. We do tend to put the muck before the horse. We do tend to put the cart before the horse. But it's true, we do, and we kind of, it's what I call the magic wand effect. We tend at times to want to just wave a magic wand, and once you wave the magic wand, the pony will appear. That's the way we tend to treat it. We don't realize so much of the time that like 98% of it is what we're working on us. And that's the harder message to deal with.
And the thing is, doing that means that I can't blame my wife, I can't blame the kids, I can't blame my boss.
Yep.
I have to own that it's just kind of me vibrating a frequency that's calling in different experiences, whether I want to own that or not. And some people say, what about little babies? A little baby didn't ask for this and didn't ask for that. Well, you're not the little baby, you're you, so you witnessing it calling in that experience. So you can't talk about the baby's creation, you can only talk about yours as the witness of it. Mm-hmm. So what's vibrating in you to call in that expression?
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's true. One of my other co-hosts, a woman named Shelley who lives out in Oregon, the other side of the country, told a story about how she grew up in an area that was really, objectively speaking, a very poor area. And any outsider looking in would have felt sorry for her for the circumstances she lived in. She would have been considered poorly dressed, poorly fed, and so forth. But that's not the way she experienced it. From her experience, it was like a wondrous childhood. I mean, because she wasn't badly treated or anything like that. She just didn't have a whole lot. But for her, it was all about finding stuff out and exploration and so forth. She didn't see herself as being a poor child. It wasn't until much later that she started to get the perspective and realize, oh, wow, this is what I grew up in. But that's not the way it felt to her at the time. So that points directly to what you're talking about. It wasn't necessarily what the kid was feeling, it's what the observer of the kid was feeling.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because we spend so much time thinking about what other people are thinking instead of thinking about what we're thinking about, that we lose touch of our ability to step consciously into the position of the author and creator of our lives and start calling the experiences that we actually want. Now, all that energy is going into making judgments and observations and having opinions and so on about other people, places and things. Whereas if we call that power back in and start here, accept that we are the author and creator, and funnel that power back into here, then we can start creating that alignment with our energy, our mindset and our action, and start calling in the experiences that we want. Every single thought that we have shows up for us if we step out of the way and allow it to. And actually creating the ideal life, I mean, we talk about the ideal life blueprint. It's one of the main things that we coach on in 12-week program. And a lot of my workshops, we're doing a retreat in Malta, just sold out this week. We're doing another one later in the year, which Steve's coming along too. And we're just spending a weekend literally just identifying what is the picture of what we want. Let's dig into that with the 12-week coaching that we do. We spend a month digging that out. We've got some tools to identify that from a soul level right back down to a physical level, time into purpose. What do we actually want? Not what does society say we should want. What do we actually want?
You're building some specificity. You're getting into a real granular level at that point.
Yeah. Really, really getting in there.
Yeah.
And then we start to identify what we call the illusions list. What is standing in the way? And the reason why I called it illusions list is because it's not that it's not real, because it is very real, because it's standing in the way of you being and receiving what you want. However, it's an illusion because in reality, everything's illusionary. Everything's just part of this matrix.
You're reminding
yourself, but it's real to us and doesn't have to remain.
Yeah, you're reminding yourself that it's fluid, that it's under your control. That's a good reminder to have. Yeah.
And then we just build the roadmap, and that roadmap is all about getting into alignment, removing the resistance of the illusions, and stepping closer and closer and closer to that ideal life vision, that ideal life, because we can have anything that we want, but we just need to give the right languaging, the right coding to the mind to support us in creating that and allowing the resistance to step out of the way.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Amanda, who gave us the question that we were discussing for the last half hour or so, when I was telling her the story about how my wife had sat me down, which she did, it was in mid-2007, and I realized that what she said was true. I really was focusing on all this negativity. When I saw The Secret a few months later for the first time, and I heard in The Secret, well, you have to control what you're thinking about and so on, because if you don't, if you just go by default, all that negative stuff you're thinking about is going to produce more and more negative stuff. And at that point, I still wasn't sure I bought into it, but I felt completely overwhelmed because I realized, oh my God, I must have 100,000 negative thoughts a day. I'm sure I do. I've just been studying how many of those negative thoughts I've got. Oh no, how the hell am I going to marshal all of that? I felt completely defeated. I had no idea how to do it. All I knew was I had totally bought into the idea I was creating it, and I didn't know what to do about the damn thing. And it took me a long time to even start to get traction out of that. So one of my favorite questions I like to ask somebody like you, a life coach, even though it's years later, if you'd been talking to me back then, how would you have gotten me off that track of, oh my God, I have all this negativity, I don't know what to do about it?
First of all, accept it. Don't put your head in the sand. But accept that it doesn't have to remain. and love yourself enough to make one small step towards how you want to feel.
Yeah.
One small step.
Yeah.
The reason why I deal with microshift is not that I don't believe in massive action. I've done a lot of Tony Robbins work. I've done NLP. One of my coaches is an NLP practitioner.
Right.
So I understand about massive action. It's possible.
Sure.
However, every single one of us has the capacity to make a baby step.
Mm-hmm.
And one baby step made and celebrated at a time creates a compound effect a lot more powerful than one massive leap, and with a lot more longevity potential than one massive leap. And so I'd ask you, what one of these massive thoughts can you deal with right here, right now? Immediately, what can you handle? Then what can you do in the next 24 hours? What's the minimum deliverable you can make in 7 days, in 30 days, and 90 days? And celebrate each and every one of those as if you'd won $1 million on the lottery, or £1 million on the lottery. And then we go back to the beginning and we ask ourselves, what can we do now? 24 hours, 7 days, 30 days, 90 days. And we keep doing that every day. Just the minimum deliverable. Not anything complicated. What's something that we know we will 100% achieve?
That's good.
And understand at the beginning, how are we going to succeed? How are we going to celebrate it? And then if you keep doing that, you'll just chip away at it. You'll chip away. And that celebration is going to create chemicals and hormones in the body that cause the mind to get excited and want to support you. Then all of a sudden, all of your mind body, all of your cognitive function is supporting you in creating more successes in alignment with these little baby steps, these microshifts you're making in that direction. Mm-hmm. And before you know it, you'll start making quantum leaps by accident, because now all the processing power of your subconscious mind is saying, hey,
right,
what can we do to support this? We want more of that oxytocin. We want more of that dopamine. We want more of that of those endorphins being produced by the celebration that Walt's doing when he wins at this,
right,
and gets another microshift done. And then before you know it, you're on autopilot, chipping away at that. Instead of the autopilot working against you, quote unquote, by giving you all this negativity, it's working with you because it wants you to actually have more successes and more celebration, because it enjoys those chemicals more than the cortisol and more than the other crappy hormones being produced in your body from what you were doing before.
Yeah, I like that. I love the detail of that answer. I didn't have you as a life coach at that point, so I couldn't have that answer. What I did have, though, was my wife, who was a former therapist, so I went to ask her. And she didn't give me all that beautiful detail that you just gave me, but her answer was very similar. Her answer was, you like to go take walks. Just go out in nature and find a flower and examine the flower and appreciate the flower. Just start with that.
There you go.
That was her entire... I mean, now, what she meant was all you just described. She just said that much, but it amounted to the same thing. And that's what I did. And that's where I started slowly climbing out of it, just by doing that. That became a lifelong habit now.
Yeah, I mean, I use something called stacking in my own life. I mean, my next book, which we were hoping to get it ready at the end of this month, but there's been a little issue with the edit, so it's probably going to be next month after my first 5-day challenge. We're going to get the book out, which is all about the Beyond Intention paradigm. And in there, I tell a story about being stuck in bed and really depressed and not wanting to get out of bed. And people think that I'm talking about the early days when I first spawned Beyond Intention. But I was actually talking about a few months ago.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
And people are like, oh my God, you still get like the black dog of depression still tries to get you? Yeah, it still tries to get me, but it doesn't win. Because once I start to feel it, I just ask myself, what do I have the least resistance to? Can I sit up? Yeah, I can sit up. I sit up and I celebrate having sat up. Okay, what can I do now? Can I wiggle around a bit? Yep. Can I get out of bed? Yep. Can I do some push-ups to get some blood moving through my body? Yep, I can celebrate that. Can I get to the shower? Yes, I can get to the shower. Well, I can stand up and stretch. Okay, now can we get to the shower? Yep, we can get to the shower. But the compound effect of me celebrating each and every one of those steps that I make gives me just enough space in the fog to get to the next step. And then before you know it, I've had a shower, I'm out having a walk, getting in nature and smelling a flower. Now, I may have wanted to get to work, get to the office and close a deal and crush it in the corporate world. I may have wanted to go out there and do something big and wonderful, but I'm not in bed anymore, and I'll celebrate that.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. The whole one step at a time thing, well, I remember when she first proposed it to me. It took her a while to talk me into it, because I was still dealing with the fact that I had 100,000 negative thoughts a day, and how was smelling a flower going to get rid of 100,000 negative thoughts a day? That can't possibly be. But I finally got tired, I think, so I said, "Oh, all right, I'll do it." And went out and did the first day, and no result at all. I mean, I looked at. I've never really been somebody who cared much about flowers. My wife's the gardener, So it didn't really do anything. So I came back and I said, it just doesn't work for me. And so she said, what'd you do? I described what I did. And she says, well, what color was the flower? I don't remember. She says, well, I know you like color. Why don't you go back and tell me what colors you saw in the flowers? So the next day I went out and looked at the colors of the flowers. And the particular flower I looked at, I don't remember what the colors were, but let's just say it was a white flower with like a orange and yellow pistil or something like that, you know. So I come back and I describe that. And when I was done describing it, she said, you should see the look on your face. I said, why? She says, because for the first time in like the last 3 months, you're smiling. So just finding the piece of it that I really did like, I didn't even have to work at celebrating. It just kind of came out. And that's something I've noticed over time. There was a time where I was following some of the ideas of Sean Aker, the positive psychology guy. He proposed the idea of it was like 5 different things he suggested that you do. One of them is if you're going out in the world and doing things, as you pass people, greet them or at least smile at them and interact in some way. And that was a big deal for me because I've always been a very introverted person. But I also like a challenge, so I figured, okay, I'll try to do that. And I started doing that on a regular basis when I go out on my daily walks. I love doing my daily walks. My cat may knock over the lamp, so I'm going to be a little bit distracted here for a second. But,
no worries.
But as I'm out on my daily walks, I'm engaging in that more and more and more. A day comes where I'm out on a walk, and I'm not really feeling engaging in that way. But I'm occasionally acknowledging somebody. And there are a lot of people who are out. This is like one of those rails to trails things. So it's a long, long walking path. Lots of people use it all the time. People are passing me, and as they're passing me, I find they're all smiling, big smiles at me. I'm saying, I'm not going out of my way today. What's going on here? I don't understand this. And finally, I pulled out my phone to do like a selfie type thing to see what they're looking at, and there's this big smile on my face. I'm saying, where did that come from? I had built it up over time without, I had built it up over time without realizing it.
There you go. And now, look, it starts reflecting back to you in your world.
Exactly. Yeah.
At such a rudimentary, yet such a beautiful level.
Yeah.
That smile that you're putting out is coming right back to you.
My cat gets very determined.
No worries. Yeah, at such a rudimentary level, what you've put out has come back to you. In a beautiful way. Yeah.
That's what happens a lot. I think that's kind of what Amanda was referring to when she talked about how these little synchronicities are popping up and so forth. Those are the things that kind of give you the fuel to keep going. Like, oh, I really am making progress here. Stuff is happening, and I'm the one who's making it happen by what I was thinking about yesterday. And what I'm thinking about today is going to create my new tomorrow, and so on and so forth. And it's all just kind of building over time. That happens long enough. It took quite some time for me before I started to really believe this was actually going to help me. I needed lots and lots of evidence. And I think I still do. I'm still wanting lots and lots of evidence. But over time, it accumulated enough where it finally had a tipping point and said, yeah, this is actually working. I'm actually producing results in the best possible way when I'm not realizing that I'm putting out the stuff I need to put out there. And that's how you know you're really making progress, I think, you know?
And this is what, again, when you're microshifting, because, I mean, you microshifted into having a smile that called in smiles from everywhere around you. You didn't even recognize. The mind didn't have the opportunity to create resistance because you just slipped into it.
Yeah.
And when we do that with other areas of our lives as well, we just slip into the space whereby we become something more beautiful and don't even realize it until it starts to sharpen our world. Exactly. We get to witness the experience of it and say, oh, hang on a minute, I quite like this.
Yeah, because it feels good, doesn't it? It feels great. So that even when, and I'm like you, I still have those moments where I slip. And I can slip pretty good. I can slip so far sometimes where I can't remember, well, it took me 36 hours to remember, 36 hours of being sick to remember that, oh, I have the power to get well again. Oh, duh. So I spent 36 hours feeling miserable about being sick. But I finally remembered.
Perpetuated the sickness by being miserable about it.
Within 24 hours of remembering, all of a sudden I had a massive improvement.
And there you're right. And I mean, we've still got, I mean, no matter, even if you're 15 years old, you've spent 15 years learning to believe things work a certain way, which often is that it takes time to get better. And so I think it's really important for listeners to recognize that, change takes a moment, but it takes time to recognize that you're ready or be in the state of being ready for the change.
Right.
And so you recognizing, that epiphany was the point that the connection was made between you and that reality where the wellness was there. But you had to go through the belief systems that your mind has about time that it takes to get better.
Yeah.
And until you challenge and consciously shift those, it's going to be the same. And some people are like, I believe I do this and do this. Why isn't my money showing up? Why am I still broke? Why haven't I met the love of my life? Yeah. I mean, I did a video called If You're Doing Everything Right, It's Not Going Wrong. And what I proposed in that video is that because we have belief systems about how things have to happen, as long as we continue the road of that, then it will show up until such time as we change our beliefs about how it has to show up. And so actually, if we just hold the line and hold the frequency of it, like with you, that 24 hours, you held the frequency, you kept remembering, I'm well. Wellness is actually my state of being. This sickness is just a blip that I've allowed myself to fall into unconsciously. I don't choose that, I choose this. Hold the frequency, and as soon as that time that we've created in our minds, because of the illusion of time, has allotted for us, all those steps have been passed through, right? Then it'll show up. I don't believe $1 million can manifest out of thin air. It can, because there's a quantum reality where everything's possible. But I don't believe that. There's no cognitive connection between me and that belief. But I do believe if I create value and go to the bank and pull it out of the bank, I can come and put it on the table. I do believe I can do it, but I would have to go through those steps of creating value in order to do it. In the Microshift to Millions project, the experiment that I told you about that we're doing, we play something called the money game. And in the money game, the whole purpose of it is, and it started with me and I've been using it successfully now, breaking away from the illusion that we have to do anything to actually manifest anything by expanding an edge around what we think is possible to create.
And what do you mean by an edge? What do you mean by an edge? What's an edge?
The edge is, so in the money game, what we do is, and I'll give you the quick do. You start with saying, I intend and create $10 or more to come to me in an easy and playful way. I'm open and ready to receive this gift of abundance in my life now. We set an intention. We write 5 things to be grateful for. And then we close that book and we don't think about it.
Okay.
So we set 5 things to be grateful for, and we actually really step into the gratitude for each of those, really experience all of them. They don't have to be connected to the $10 or more.
They
it's
don't.
just
Okay, I
getting you to
about
take
that.
gratitude.
Okay.
Close the page, forget about it. The $10 will show up. Okay. It might take a month, it might take a year, but it will show up. It's only delayed by your resistance to $10 manifesting for you.
Right.
Now, the reason why we say $10 or more is because what happens is setting this intention opens up the door for money to come to you. But the money that comes is basically what your mind believes the or more edge is. So if your mind believes that you can manifest 500, then instead of you getting $10, you'll get 500. And then your edge is $500. If you only get the 10, that means that your edge is 10. Okay. And your mind believes you can get what you asked for, but not anymore.
So the edge kind of represents where you are right now in your acceptance of this much I can expect to come in. Okay.
Yes, but then what we do with the game is there's a specific process that we go through with the number of times we expand it, the number of times that we do this process over time to push the edge and expand it so that it stretches and stretches and stretches and stretches. I'm doing an experiment now when I want to stretch the edge all the way up to 1 million.
Right.
At the moment, I've got up to 20,000, but I want to get it all the way up to 1 million. That's part and parcel of what I'm playing with. But you you expand, you contract, you expand, you contract, you expand, you contract. Each time saying or more, or more, or more, whilst doing the work of clearing any resistance that shows up in your experience around this process full stop and around creating abundance.
Now, I'm a little confused about one point because when you were describing the $10 plus edge, you were also describing how it could take a day, a month, a year, whatever. It'll take whatever amount of time it takes to come. I was also under the impression that this challenge you're trying to do within a certain period of time. Did I misread that?
They're separate.
Oh,
so the game is something I'm running alongside the challenge. It's one way that we can use to add money to the pot.
Got it. Okay.
But it's just a tool to remove the illusion that we need to do things.
Right. Okay.
Action is the final part. Everything else is more important, but we're ready to take action. But we want to try build up that thing of spontaneously allowing things to create.
Okay. So what then becomes the value of time limits? What does that bring to the table, so to speak?
The time limit is something completely different, because the time limit isn't really a time limit. It's just the time that we're spending on the project, because every month we're going through certain steps.
Got it.
On the project, every month we're going through certain steps because we're using a certain method in order to watch money compound.
Got it.
And every month we're doing another step, another step. But within 18 months, we can get
I always
there.
get suspicious about plans. So you do it within X amount of days or X amount of months or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute. Whoa. That's like a big setup from my perspective.
Yeah, but so all that we do is we set a real minimum deliverable, and we expand the experience every month so that the minimum deliverable is pushed, and we make it easy so that you can do it. We set yourself up, we stack everything against us for success by making it really super, super easy. So the first month, all you have to do is create $100. You only have to create $100, which is $3 a day if you want to do it that way, or 10 transactions that create $10 of value, or 2 transactions which isn't a big ask as long as you're committed to learning. And we've got mentors and coaches, and we did a mindset piece today, for example, and we give all of the tools so that minimum deliverable can be set.
Right.
My cat is giving me a hard time and trying to knock it over here, so I'm having to deal with him, and also checking the questions to see if anybody's asking questions.
Jeffrey in particular, has been making a lot of comments. I'm not seeing any real questions there, so I'll just continue with what we're talking about. But I always want to make sure, is somebody asking a question that we're not addressing? I want to make sure we don't miss them. But that's fascinating, and I like the way that you handle that challenge, because to me the challenge is to grow who you are, and that's what your challenge is doing. It's not setting specific numbers that you have to reach in a certain period of time. It's stretching who you are as a human being, and everybody's going to be in a different place. Everybody's going to be having different needs, having different levels of resistance, having different kinds of resistance, different amounts of resistance. It's going to be varying from one person to the next. It's kind of like the way Louise and I like to play miniature golf. Well, we don't play miniature golf against each other. We play miniature golf against our previous scores.
Got you.
Same thing. That way we're never in competition with each other. We're in competition with ourselves, trying to improve our own scores. Interestingly enough, we actually progress at about the same rate. I haven't quite figured that one out yet, but we do.
You're just in too tight a vibrational alignment, that's all.
We are. It's amazing. I told this story a couple days ago, but there's the movie out about Queen that came out just recently called Bohemian Rhapsody, and we saw.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, you've seen the movie. We saw it on pay-per-view, and the day after we saw it on pay-per-view, we were both kind of interested in what they portrayed there. You remember how they portrayed the Live Aid concert?
Yes, I remember that.
Watch out there, buddy. All right.
Sometimes they just need a little attention, so.
Yeah, that's it.
But anyway, they portrayed the Live Aid concert, and both of us independently thought to ourselves, geez, I wonder if there's a YouTube video of the original Live Aid concert. And so we both looked independently, without the other person knowing about it, for that same Live Aid video. And at one point, she came in to tell me about it and saw me watching the video, and she said, "You got to be kidding." Once again, we're proving we're on the same wavelength entirely.
There you go.
Happens all the time. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, this is fascinating. This is good stuff. I kind of wish we had a lot more time to work on it, but we're only down to like 5 or 10 minutes left. So in that last bit of time, what can you tell somebody? First of all, how can they find out more about you? And then more importantly, what can you tell somebody who is dealing with something? They're stuck on something. They're kind of this is like the generic answer. Where do they begin from your perspective to get themselves back on track? This is kind of like going back to the beginning again.
Going back to the beginning, I would say before you do anything, you have to step into the power to change something. Mm-hmm. So one of the core principles, and probably the first place that I started when it came to creating or unfolding beyond intention, was something called common denominator theory. And that's the realization that you have to come to, that if you look at every single experience in your life, there's only one thing common in every experience, and that's you. So the logical place to start when effecting a change with the greatest reach is with yourself. And actually, when you look even deeper, you'll see that the only one that's been there at every point, when we talked about the choice machine earlier, the only one that's been there at the point of that deciding, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, has been you. So when you own that, yes, it means you have to own responsibility for everything that's come before, but it also means that you have the power to change anything going forward. So I'd encourage people to spend some time just actually genuinely, not doing lip service to it, but just connecting with, not from a self-flagellation, or however you say it, perspective, but just from a loving place, just acknowledge that, okay, cool, everything that's come up till now has been me, but everything that's going forward is me too. And that means that I can do something different. If I make different choices, I can create different outcomes. That's where I would always encourage people to start. And from that place, just actually ask yourself what you really want. Not what your mum and dad said, not what your teacher said, your boss said, or your children or society. What do you want, and what does that feel like?
What you're really talking about here is twofold. it's first of all changing the negative stories to positive stories. That's a big part of it. But more importantly, it's giving yourself credit for it.
Yes.
We don't talk about that very much, and we really should, shouldn't we?
Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to do a video about that either later today or tomorrow. Just this whole idea that you're always winning, nobody's losing. It may not be what you particularly consciously wanted, but subconsciously you set that direction and you made it. So celebrate it, even if it's not what you consciously want. And that puts you in a better stead to create something else than beating yourself up over what you don't want to see.
Yeah, we do that so easily. So once again, the secret is go back and just start taking that inventory, isn't it?
That's it. What do I want? More importantly, what does that feel like? Because everything that we actually want, really we want it because it's how it's going to make us feel at the end of the day. It's the frequency that it gives us.
Right.
I want a new car. There's something behind that. Even if it's the ego trap of I want a new car so everyone can see that I've got a new car. That's what you want to feel. Okay, own that, and you're going to be better positioned to get there than not actually owning and acknowledging that fact.
Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. How does somebody find out more about your books, your classes? Maybe somebody actually feels up to the direct challenge of coaching with you. You never know. There might be somebody who's on that line. How do they find out about you?
The funny thing is, it's quite a unique position that I've got 2 slots actually open on coaching at the moment. But I normally encourage people to go to dreamwithdan.com, check out on Facebook, look at some of my free content. The 5-day challenge is starting on the 4th of March. I really recommend people do that. It's 5 minutes a day over 5 days. I'm going to be giving you some practical steps to actually stepping into control of the choice machine. Not in a big way, microshifts, minimum deliverables, just a little thing that you can do every day. There's some prizes and stuff being given away. That starts on the 4th of March, like I said. I've got 2 books out at the moment. One is on time mastery, called From Time to Time. And another one's called The Dreamer's Manifesto, which is about connecting you to why you're here. It goes a bit deeper than purpose, I find. And it's just an explanation of my catchphrase, dream with your eyes open. So head over to dreamwithdan.com. Definitely check me out on Facebook. There's a lot of, free content on there, hours and hours of free content you can get on there. If you really want to do something with us, our programs start from like $100 or something like that for the online programs, where you can really start getting shifts, and there's reviews about that. But I mean, coaching with me, like I said, it's not cheap, and it's not it's not cheap, and it's not for everyone.
Right.
And to be honest, a lot of people that think they need coaching don't need coaching. They just need a nudge in the right direction. So I encourage people, get some of the free content first, jump on the 5-day challenge. We're going to have a lot of fun with that, and there's going to be some great content. And if at the end of that, maybe you want to try a program, maybe jump on our group coaching. The group coaching is, I think it's $37 or $47 a month. There's a group coaching call every week. You get daily content and access to me and the team to ask your questions, and we'll support you in getting what you want to do. We do a lot of events. Like I said, my next event is on Saturday in New Jersey. I think we've got 3 or 4 seats left on that. We're not doing a live stream of that. The mastermind retreat in Malta is sold out, but we're doing a live stream for that. All the details are on the website, dreamwithdan.com.
And dream is a big word for you. You use that a lot. Dream with your eyes open.
Yes.
Dreamwithdan.com. I mean, dream is big for you.
And Dreamer CEO. Because dream for me, and the reason why I say dream with your eyes open is because, I did some work with dream yoga in terms of my spiritual practice, but this thing we're walking around now, in fact, I'm speaking at the East West Bookstore in Seattle next week, Thursday again. They've invited me to come back. And the event, I've called it, is Navigating the Divine Matrix. And what I'm really speaking to there is that this thing that we're now acknowledging is just an illusionary state. Can be bent to what we want if we acknowledge that we're more than the dream, more than the illusion. So dreaming with your eyes open is acknowledging that if we're aware and actually own the power that we have actually being more than this thing, then there's no limit to what we can experience, no limit to what we can create. And that's where I really come from with that.
It's a great lesson, because we tend to think about dreams in terms of what it is that we want to achieve or bring into our lives. But the dreams are also what we've already brought into our lives. And they're still dreams. And we don't normally think about them that way. We think of, oh, no, that's reality. Right?
No. And there's some deep esoteric rabbit holes we can go through on that. And I just had this afternoon, I did something called quantum hypnosis, which was absolutely mind-boggling, and speaking to that whole thing of just stepping outside of the illusion for a second and looking from the outside in,
right,
and seeing what answers you can call in from that space.
Yep.
And when we do that, it's an interesting rabbit hole. It's an interesting rabbit hole, but there's so much more to it. And like I said, purple brick theory science is now speaking to what the ancients spoke about and calling it a different name. But we're getting closer and closer to the old way of thinking, the old way of doing things, and just putting it in new language. And that is that we are the author and creator of our lives. Everything that we think becomes what we are. Everything that we experience is a reflection of what's going inside. As within, so without. The environment doesn't lie and the mind does not lose.
Well, Dan, I can tell you have introduced some really cool concepts here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. Thanks for filling in for Steve. I know he appreciates that. Hopefully our little exchange among the three of us will remind, I know it already has reminded him, oh yeah, I got to start focusing on getting better. But but his getting better has been a benefit for us, because you do a great job of just getting right down to the core, right to the pith of the thing. That's fabulous. Thank you for that. Stay in touch, you know. I mean, definitely, let us know what's going on with your schedule and so forth. And
and I've got a radio show. I run 1150 KKNW with my co-host Jess. We'd love to get you on the show and talk about this sometime. So I'll get together with Jess and work out how we can get you on the radio show as well.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Dan. Before we go, I want to remind people, if you're not yet a subscriber, please become a subscriber. The instructions on how to do it are on the homepage at loatoday.net. And for now, we're going to say thank you to Dan, thank you to our live stream audience, and thank you to our regular subscribers. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you very much.